Exactly a week ago, the new Patriotic Party elected its flag bearer for the 2024 general elections. To many, it was of no doubt that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia was going to win. But the the showdown of Kennedy Japan also created or introduced a narrative to Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's victory. But what did he really mean when he said he's going to be his own man? What's the message in there? Take a look.
Ghana has given me everything, every opportunity and grace. I have dedicated my life to give back and to serve this wonderful country to the best of my ability with every breath in my body. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I have my own vision and my own priorities. Given the opportunity by you, the people of Ghana, to lead, I shall govern as my own man with guidance from God Almighty. My vision is to build an inclusive, food self-sufficient, data-driven, and systems-based nation that will fully participate in the global digital revolution to resolve our problems and also to usher in a golden age of benefits from our natural resources. I want to lead a nation that improves and unleashes the talents of our youth and offers good jobs with good pay and sustainable growth with macroeconomic discipline.
Well, that's Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, flag bearer-elect of the new Patriotic Party, still the Vice President of the Republic of Ghana. Professor Jampo will speak to that twin effect on governance. But he polled 118,210, representing 61.43% of the total valid vote cast. And Kennedy Ohene Japan, 71,996, 37.41% of the total valid vote cast. Also Free Akoto, 1,459, and Francis Adainimo follows in that order with 781. Council, Dr. Bawumia's standout message in there that he will be his own man with his own vision. I've heard many make reference to the fact that he didn't want to go on the path of the late John Evans Atta Mills, who said that he was going to consult the late Jerry Rawlings 24/7, and that went against him politically, or you used that against him politically, that he was going to be his own man. But it's going to take a lot more than just a statement from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia like this, that he will be his own man, is it not?
As far as I know, Dr. Bawumia has always been his own man.
He's always been his own man.
Of course, but in our constitutional arrangement, the vice president is expected to assist the president to deliver on his vision. And so that's why the constitution, apart from clearly assigning the role of being chairman of the police council and the armed forces council, every other assignment is at the behest of the president. And so when your responsibility is to assist somebody to deliver on his vision, that is it. That's the only thing that you can do. Now, he has been elected as presidential candidate, of course, to lead the new Patriotic Party into the 2024 presidential elections. He has to send that clear message that for 7 years, I have been an assistant. And given the opportunity to be president, I shall lead the nation according to my own vision and priorities. No president comes into office to implement the vision of another person, because you would have put the vision before the Ghanaian people and you would have explained to the Ghanaian people what your social contract entails. And if they agree with you, they give you their mandate. And once the mandate is granted to you, it becomes an obligation to govern according to the terms of the social contract which you put before the people. So Dr. Bawumia needed to make that clear. But he just didn't stop there. He gave a glimpse of what that vision entails. And like we heard him rightly saying that it would mean an inclusive, food self-sufficient, database and systems-driven kind of leadership, which would usher our country into that fourth industrial revolution. There's nobody who denies that the future of the world is digital, and that nations which would prepare themselves in anticipation of the arrival of the fourth industrial revolution are those countries that will reap the full benefits of that revolution and spread prosperity amongst these people. Recently, PwC did a paper on the impact of digitization on the economy and job creations. And they concluded that the key driver to economic prosperity and job creation is digitization. And they estimated that in last year alone, it contributed about $193 billion to economies around the world. It sends a signal.
This is the global impact.
Absolutely. So it sends a signal that nations must take steps to prepare themselves in order to reap the full benefit. But he just didn't speak about this data-based, system-driven kind of leadership. He said it will be anchored on macroeconomic discipline. All the political parties agree that the major problem afflicting our country's development has been the lack of macroeconomic discipline. And that's why since 1957, we have been to the International Monetary Fund for 17 times. And on each occasion, it has been the result of poor macroeconomic environment. All right? And so he makes a point.
What is he going to do differently? I mean, yes, there is that continuous sin of macroeconomic mismanagement and indiscipline. But I've seen already the records comparison going on. But there is a problem we're confronted with now, and the problems that would confront us in the future going forward. What is Dr. Bawumia willing to do differently from what is being done now? Because you've considered that we have been indisciplined in managing our macroeconomy, which has led us to this economic quagmire that we find ourselves in. What is he going to do differently? Because he is part of the crop of people leading this country now.
Some of the measures are already being rolled out, and the results are beginning to show. All right? So, for example, as of November 2022, our currency had depreciated by around 54%. From February to today, the available data showed that the depreciation level is 3.1%. That has been a significant turnaround from the situation that we found ourselves in 2022. Headline inflation, which was around 55%, at the end of September this year, is currently doing 38.1%. All right? Debt to GDP ratio is declining. All of these things are as a result of the interventions that have been made since the beginning of this year. So, and he has made a promise that these interventions are things that he would continue to do. Unfortunately for us, it will be the first time since 1957 that we will be electing an economist, because the heart of the Ghanaian problem has always been the economy. And for the first time, if he wins the 2024 election, we'll be putting in place a technical person to run the affairs of our national economy. You don't know that the performance of the currency, as you did make reference to, is as a result of a number of factors. Also, majority of it also being the suspension of our external debt servicing. You know that? Yes, right? I know that.
That we are not, since the beginning of the year till now, not servicing our external debt. So the impact that it has on our city, whenever we're servicing the external debt, is off. And so the city is enjoying some respite as a result of that suspension of the external debt servicing. The suspension that is also having a significant impact on the performance of the city. I just wanted to underscore that since you left that out. It isn't material because really the suspension is a policy intervention.
by government.
Because we are the IMF.
Exactly. The decision to go to IMF is in itself a policy decision.
Which you were unwilling to go.
But cabinet took the decision to go, and the president approved of that decision. So it's a policy decision by government, because government had assessed that that intervention would restore macroeconomic environment into a very suitable one for businesses to operate. And so government took that decision. So apart from the fact that he spoke clearly of what his vision entails, his victory means a lot for the New Patriotic Party. Professor Jampo is here, political science professor, and he would concede that the NPP has been at the receiving end, actually since 1947, of being, with the greatest of respect, an Akan exclusive party, in which the rest of the country are essentially spectators. And so since 1992, what our opponents have done have been to construct an identity-based coalition, sort of, against the New Patriotic Party. So they say to Nana Khan, look, this New Patriotic Party is not a party that you should belong to. This New Patriotic Party would never give you an opportunity to lead. I saw a video of their General Secretary a few days ago, and the confidence with which he dismissed the possibility of a Dr. Bawumia leadership of the New Patriotic Party was so amazing, because they were fortified in their view that under no circumstance would a party, all right, predominantly Akan, go and elect somebody from the northern part of our country. And this concern, I've made the point earlier, has been expressed by many, including academics, both local and foreign. And quite a few days ago, I cited Professor Paul Nugent, who was a director of Africa Center at Edinburgh University, when he was speaking at Cheltenham on 19 December 2012, just after the 2012 presidential elections. And he made the point that to understand the NPP's problem, that you needed to pose a question whether the NPP would ever be ready to elect a candidate from the northern part of the country. The decision on 4th November clearly has dealt a decisive blow to this propaganda that the NDC has consistently used against the New Patriotic Party in any election. And that puts the NPP in a very better position to compete for every vote across the length and breadth of our country in 2024. But it is not just the significance of he being a northerner, but it also, and he made that point strongly throughout his speech, that for people who have long held the belief that the NPP is not their political home, that the decision of the delegates is a clear invitation to them that it is possible for them to also be elected to lead the New Patriotic Party. Alfred, and for one thing that stood out, and I must emphasize that point, was his concession on the difficulties that we have been faced with right from 2021 through to 2022.
Well, he said that he
rather than saying that
we are faced with difficulty, Ghanaians are going through hardship. After conceding the hardship, who takes the responsibility for that?
Rather than saying that Ghanaians are engaged in purposeless lamentations, or that he is a dead goat, or he would sing in Ethiopia, he said to them, look, I share in your pain, all right? I recognize that the economic crisis has brought untold hardships. I recognize that it has destabilized incomes, all right? And I'm much concerned as any other Ghanaian.
Now, after expressing the concern, then what next? Who takes responsibility for this? He did not take responsibility for that as chair of the economic management team that has led us to this hardship that he concedes the Ghanaian people are carrying.
The president has addressed the nation on a number of times on these economic difficulties and has accepted fully the responsibility, all right? There's no, the debate on the economic crisis It's unanimous. We all agree that there's a crisis. It is the question, the disagreement has been what occasioned the crisis. So, whereas we, in the New Patriotic Party, attribute the situation to the devastating impact of COVID-19 and Putin's aggressions in Ukraine,
Only
as well
that.
as the banking sector. When Dr. Bawumia spoke last year at Kasua, he identified it as a quadruple whammy. Not just the two twin difficulties that the world is going through, but also the expensive banking sector cleanup that we had to embark upon to save depositors as many as 4 million people. Alfred, could you have imagined the wailing at Makola Market that our mothers and sisters would wake up one day and not have access to their savings?
But you also ignore the social cost that this decision, the sole singular decision to clean up the banking sector, the way you
I'm
did,
coming. Alfred, let me make this point. Let me make this point. So when we say that there's economic crisis, in fact, the president said that never in his entire life has he witnessed a malevolent of forces afflicting our nation like we witnessed in 2021 and 2022. So that admission and acceptance of responsibility has been firmly established. We have never run away from that responsibility. The question has always been what occasioned the crisis.
Which you only relate to just the
Alfred,
COVID.
Interestingly,
Yeah, you said it's because of COVID and Russia-Ukraine.
And Mr. Mahama agrees with us. When he was speaking at the Harvard Business School in April, I don't know whether it was this year or last year, citing data from Economic Commission of Africa, he said that the major problem afflicting global economy has been the devastating impact of COVID-19 and Putin's actions in Ukraine. And he went on to say that these two crises have visited on economies around the world, especially in Africa, our worst recession in 50 years.
So if you make reference to the president making that statement and then ascribing it to solely this twin effect, and yet the IMF talks about inherent challenges within its own assessment of the state of the economy, which also exacerbated the situation that we're dealing with.
They did not just say.
I just wanted to. Are you saying that the IMF's diagnosis of our economic crisis having its own internal factors contributing to where we are is a wrong diagnosis of the state of the economy? To say that the IMF said inherent weaknesses is vague because they provided specifics of what those inherent problems were. The banking sector cleanup, the excessive the unconscionable pay or take agreements that we went into. In fact, the World Bank country director described it as the worst decision of the Mahama era. So they identified the inherent weaknesses. And it is not just the World Bank that is telling us. I've just told you that when Dr. Bawumia spoke at Kasua, he identified it as a quadruple whammy, and he cited these same matters that the World Bank and the IMF have cited. All right? So the point I'm making is that the candidate of the New Patriotic Party, rather than being dismissive of the concerns of the Ghanaian people, was honest enough to concede that people are going through challenges, that inflation has taken away incomes, and that it has imposed significant cost of living on the Ghanaian people. That, for me, is worth mentioning, that a leader would make such a concession, which clearly departs from what we have known our politicians for. They will come and dismiss it and say, look, you are engaging in purposeless lamentations and all the things that you are talking, you think fuel is up. I would come.